Hi, geometry students. It's day 10 of Unit 1. And to do today's notes, you need a straight edge or a ruler to use as a straight edge, and you need your compass. So here's the day I've been talking about. You need your compass. Now, keep in mind, my compass, I can easily kind of open and close. If you have one that has like the little dial here, it may take you a little longer. You might need to pause the video at points. But otherwise, basically get ready to just draw. It's fun. All right. We start with some basic constructions. The idea is that we don't use the ruler for any sort of measurement. You're only using it as a straight edge. All measurements essentially are being done with a compass. So for the first one that we have here, it's asking us to construct a segment that's congruent to segment AB. So we are not going to use the ruler to measure. The directions are up here, but I will walk you through it. I think your best bet, if you need to, is to default to the directions. Otherwise, you can just watch and then try it on your own, and feel free to pause at any time that you need to. Okay? So first step is to actually give yourself a segment that is clearly longer than segment AB. So off to the side here, give yourself a segment to work with. And then I'm going to plot an endpoint at one end, and I'm going to call it A prime. So with a little dash there, A prime. All right. To be able to construct a segment congruent, I'm going to use my compass as a little measurement tool. I want you to put the pointer on A and then open or close it depending on where you're at so that the pencil is on point B. All right, so I'm measuring that length. What I'm now going to do is move my compass over, put the pointer on A prime, and then you're going to swipe a little arc. Now, the first time you use your compass, it might feel a little strange. You're going to want to put the pressure on the point and let the pencil kind of drag on the page. So if you want to even take a moment to just play with it, go ahead, draw yourself some circles somewhere else, and just get yourself familiar with it. Where this arc crosses the line, that is now my B prime, and now this segment is congruent to that one. Now, something to keep in mind, you are going to have extra lengths and extra arcs. Leave that stuff. Don't erase it. I want to see those things. So you can certainly try it one more time if you like. You have segment FG down at the bottom, and you can repeat it again. So give yourself a segment that's longer than FG, and then measure with your compass pointer to pencil the length, and then swipe that arc to measure what F prime, G prime should be. On to the next page. Constructing an angle that is congruent to a given angle. Ooh, here we go. All right. So how I typically show this one is a little bit different than the way it's described up top. So let me walk you through it. I always start, because usually there's not endpoints at C and E. I usually will give you one where it's just, an arrow at each end. So I don't like to kind of count on that. So your very first step is to put your pointer on point D. And I want you to swipe an arc so that it hits both ray DE and ray DC. So go ahead and swipe that arc here. From there, the 2 points where the arc intersected the line, I'm going to call it A and B. I want you to keep note of those, because we're going to come over here, give yourself, and actually I've got some space underneath. Maybe I'll put it underneath so I've got a little more room here. I'm going to give myself a ray to work with that's just like ray DE. So I'll put D prime on one end, and I can put E over here, E prime. And then I'm going to mark that same arc. So notice that length didn't change any. Come down and put your pointer on point D prime. And then I'm going to swipe an arc here. So that this arc matches that guy. All right. My next step, I'm going to use let me mark that bottom intersection point as A prime. So you can kind of see how things are matching up. Now I'm going to use my compass to measure the distance between points A and B on my original picture. So let me close that up. So there's the distance from A to B. And you're going to come down here. So watch, my pointer is going to come down to point A prime. And then I'm going to swipe a spot where B should go. So I'm going to grab my pen and mark that as my B prime. And then lastly, I want my angle. So I'm going to use my straight edge, and I'm going to line it up from D through point B prime, and I'm going to connect. And you can use your pen, pencil, whatever you got. It's probably better to start with pencil just to be safe. But if you have a pen next to you, it's not the end of the world. All right, so that is how to construct an angle congruent to a given angle. So now this angle is exactly the same size as that guy. Now there's space for you to practice on page 33. I would suggest you do it. Even if you do one out of the two practice angles, it's just a good idea. So this particular one, because it sometimes confuses people, I'm going to do one more time. So same idea, give yourself a ray to work with. I'm going to label one end B prime, and I'm going to label this end C prime. I'm going to, sorry, getting a phone call there. I'm going to swipe an arc, and it doesn't matter how big the arc is. You just want to make sure that it hits both sides. So I'm going to swipe an arc here, and then I'm going to swipe the same arc down here. So the 2 points where it hit, I'm going to call those, let's see, I have A, B, C, I'll call those D and E. So that means that would make this point a little like D prime there, right? The next move was to measure the distance from D to E. So I'm going to close it up there to measure that little distance, and then I'm going to mark it down here. So go put my pointer on D prime, mark that spot, and then that becomes my E prime. Last thing, connect from B to E, and you can pass it right on through, make it a ray that extends beyond that, and there we go. All right. If you want to mark A prime then down here, feel free. You don't necessarily need to, but in case you were like, well, what about A? There you go. All right, so you have one more spot to practice that if you'd like. Otherwise, moving on to the next construction. So we've constructed a congruent segment, a congruent angle. Next up, this is one of the most useful ones that we're going to use, and it's pretty easy to do, constructing an angle bisector. So angle bisector means we're going to end up with two congruent angles or two equal angles once we do this. So I'm going to slide right on down so you can see it. And same thing, you're going to start with your compass. The pointer is going to go right on vertex G. And now you can choose. You can open it as much as you need to, as long as when you swipe that arc, it's going to hit both sides. So I'm going to swipe my arc here so that it hits. I'm going to label those just so I can talk about them as A and B. Now, I'm not going to construct a congruent angle, so I don't need any primes this time. What I want to mark A and B for is now, don't change your compass at all. Keep it exactly the same size and put the pointer on point A, and you're going to swipe an arc towards the interior of the angle, and then I'm going to move over and put the pointer on point B and swipe another arc towards the interior so that those two arcs should intersect. If for any reason they don't, just plot the point and extend it a little bit, but they'll cross right in the middle. And now the last thing, once I plot that point, is I'm going to connect from point G through that point dead center. So connect from G through that point, and now what I should have is two congruent little angles right there. So that is my angle bisector. So it was one arc to start, and then two more equal arcs where the pointer was on each of those intersections right there. All right, you have a few more to practice on the next page. I would make sure to do at least one of those, if not all three. I'm going to jump all the way over to page 36, constructing a perpendicular bisector of segment JK. So perpendicular bisector. And if you have a highlighter, feel free, you can highlight those details there. When you think, it's going to cross at a nice 90-degree angle, and it's also going to be cutting it in half. All right, so I'm going to form 90-degree angle. Oops, 90-degree. There we go. All right, and you're going to end up with two congruent segments because it's this segment that's going to get bisected here. This is another one that we're going to use a whole ton. So we're going to do a bunch with these constructions. Here you have a segment J to K. What you need to make sure of is that when you choose to draw this first arc, you're going to put it on one of the endpoints. So I'm going to start at endpoint K. Right now, my compass from the last one is open to about here. I want to make sure it's open more than halfway. So I'm going to open my compass up a little bit wider. So the directions say about 3/4 of the way. That's a pretty good estimate. All right, so about right here. And I'm going to swipe a big arc, so almost a semicircle. Give yourself a big arc there. And now keep the compass exactly the same. Go put the pointer on point J and swipe the exact same thing from the other side. So big old, almost a semicircle there. All right. If you are having any issues, sometimes the compass will jump a little bit on you. Something you can do, put the pressure on the pointer, and you can even turn the paper. Sometimes that helps. Some people will realize, like, I didn't need this part. I just needed to see where they're going to cross. So you could always just mark this and then pick it up and mark it down here. But what you're looking to have happen is you're looking for 2 arcs that cross here and here. So go ahead and mark those 2 points. And now you can label them if I want. Maybe I'll label them A and B just so I can talk about them. But now I'm going to connect those 2 points. I think I can zoom back in. I was just almost right to the edge of the picture here. So use your straight edge, line it on up from A to B, and then connect. All right. So what you should have formed a line that's perpendicular to JK. So it should be forming a nice 90-degree angle. And then this segment here, congruent to that one. So maybe if I label that like point C, I can say that JC is now congruent to CK. All right. So nice 90-degree angles and congruent little segments. On the next page, there's practice. You know what I'm going to say. Practice at least 1 out of the 2. So try it again. All right, the last construction in this video here is an equilateral triangle. So when we think equilateral triangle, 3 congruent sides. I need all of the sides the same. So they're always going to give you 1 side length. So right there, AB, that's one of the side lengths. What you're going to do, since we know we can use our compass as a measuring tool, you're going to open from pointer to pencil. Ooh, that's pretty perfect for my last construction. Pointer to pencil, change it if you need to. I'm going to open mine just a little bit more. The length of segment AB, and then put the pointer on point A, and you're going to swipe an arc kind of above towards the middle of the line segment. So right above that. And then move the pointer over to point B and do the same thing. Swipe an arc so that those 2 should intersect. So you can always go back and extend it if you need to, if you realize you didn't draw enough of it. All right, plot that point and let's call it C. And now what that is, that should be the top vertex of your triangle. So line it up so that AC, we can draw here, and then BC. And now what you have are 2 more sides that are the same length as side AB. So all 3 sides are equal to each other. Therefore, equilateral triangle. All right, you have 2 more that you can practice at the bottom, all right, on page 38. And then what we're going to do tomorrow, or whenever it is that I see you next, we will work on page 39 as some practice. So I'm going to make a little note here on page 39. We're going to use that as our recap. So leave that page blank so that we have a chance to do that together. And then if need be, in person, I can always walk back through any one of those constructions if you need it. So you have done the majority of the constructions starting on page 31 through page 38, and then you're holding off on page 39. All right, I hope it went well. If you have any issues, make sure to reach out and ask for some help. Thanks, guys.